Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Canadian Football Central, CFL content for the fans, by the fans. And we have our 111th Grey Cup coming up this Sunday. This is going to be our preview of that game between the Winnipeg Blue Bombers and the Toronto Argonauts, a rematch of 2 years ago, with a bit of some interesting circumstances hitting this game, with the Bombers being in this game. This will be the first time since the Eskimos dynasty that a team has made the Grey Cup 5 consecutive years. Now, the Eskimos notoriously won all 5 of those. Winnipeg has won the first 2, lost to Toronto, lost to Montreal, and now has an opportunity to either continue or break that streak against the Toronto Argonauts. And it'll be a bit interesting as we have some interesting circumstances. With the first one, I'm going to firstly put this out there. I think everyone is already aware of this, that the starting quarterback for the Toronto Argonauts is not Chad Kelly. He will be out an estimated 6 to 9 months with his injury in the East Final. And that means that Nick Arbuckle will be starting, the starting quarterback for
Army.
For the starting quarterback for the Toronto Argonauts in this game. It could be Cameron Dukes going in at some point, but Arbuckle will be starting. So make sure you guys like, share, and subscribe if you have not already. Hit the notification bell, helps out the channel a ton. If you were listening to this on Spotify, that means, first of all, yay, Rick, thanks for putting the video on Spotify. And secondly,
Rick
make sure you
hasn't been lazy and puts it up.
and secondly, give us 5 stars. We'd really appreciate it. Helps out the channel a ton, and also our growth on Spotify. We're looking to grow more on that platform. But that was kind of the start of the injury report. Rick, do you want to go through the rest of it? We're going to go through everything in this video: injury reports, past records, playoffs this year, season this year, all that sort of stuff. So let's start with the injury report.
Do you just want the ones that did not practice?
Just give us the whole rundown on we'll start with Toronto and then do Winnipeg.
Okay, so Tyshawn Blackburn was a healthy scratch. He full practice day. Isaiah Cage, hip injury, full practice. Kenneth George Jr., former Ticat, healthy scratch, full practice. Jamie Harry, defensive back, hip injury, did not practice. Tyson Hergott, defensive line, healthy scratch, full practice. Chad Kelly, leg, did not practice. Daniel
did not practice. Is he even walking?
He actually had surgery that
night. He got the surgery quick. Oh, okay, so that's probably, yeah, because I mean now they're concerned in terms of if he's able to start next season. So
they
probably want to get him on rehab right away then.
I mean, he's already in Toronto.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Jonathan Jones, healthy scratch, full practice. Tommy Neal, wide receiver, healthy scratch, full practice. Robert Priester, defensive back, shoulder, full practice. And then Richie Sandini, wide receiver, rib, full practice.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, did you hear who Toronto brought back as their third quarterback?
I saw they brought back Brian Scott.
And Scott, former Bomber.
Yes.
Which was a former...
For a very short amount of time.
So now we're going to go to Winnipeg's long list of people. Kendall Randolph, offensive line, full practice. Micah Vanterpool, offensive line, healthy scratch.
I think it's I think it's a V, Vanterpool. Is it?
Yeah, Vanterpool.
Yep.
Cody Case, wide receiver, healthy scratch, full practice. Myron Mitchell, healthy scratch, full practice.
Yeah.
Carter, brace yourselves for these next 2. Drew Woldotarski, rib injury, did not practice.
Yeah.
Nick Dembski, ankle, did not practice. Jay Parsons, defensive line, healthy, full practice. Kyle Sampson, defensive line, healthy practice. I'm not even going to pronounce this guy's first name. Mr. Haba, defensive line, healthy
Celestian
scratch.
Haba.
Yeah, I wasn't even going to come near to that.
Celestian Haba.
Full practice.
Okay.
Jamal Woods, defensive line, knee, full practice. Devin Adams, defensive line, healthy scratch, full practice. Brian Cole, linebacker, healthy scratch, full practice. Marquez Bridges, defensive back, healthy scratch, full practice. And then Jake Kelly and Noah Halat, both knee and did not practice.
Yeah, no, Noah Hallett went down last game on special teams, I believe. I believe it was on a punt, I want to say. Or no, it was on on either punt or kickoff. I think it was punt. And essentially one of the Saskatchewan guys, when I guess blocking him, I'm not going to lie, I saw the play. He was not blocking him. He straight up hit him straight from behind. I couldn't believe that Saskatchewan didn't get an illegal block penalty on that play. But they didn't. It was the only reason I'm saying I was able to see it very well is because it was near where I was sitting, where the play was, and I was looking like straight at him specifically when the play was happening. But so I saw him go down because of course I mean the second you see Hallett go down, you're kind of like, oh shit, which one is it? Because Hallett, it's either Nick or Noah. So it was Noah who went down. So hope nothing but the best for him. Nick Dembski. I hope that he's all right, as we could really use him in this game. Just because he didn't practice does not mean that he won't play, as the Bombers have most of the time erred on the side of caution when it comes to these things. Very famously last year, Brady Oliveira, there's a ton of times he didn't practice, and he still rushed for 1,500 yards and played all 18 games. So all in all, there's a decent chance that he does end up playing, but even if he doesn't, I think the Bombers have a lot of depth at that position. But good for us to go through that. Now, how do we want to do this? So we could either, Rick, we could go. Do we want to go through the records right now, or do we want to go through the team's kind of position by position?
For what?
No, I'm saying, do we look at the matchup position for position against each other, or should we look at maybe the lineup, like how they've done against each other this season?
Well, that I was going to go with the second option because I actually had them pulled up on my screen.
Okay, let's go with that. So when was the first game? What week was that?
So first game was week 8. That was the game that went in overtime.
Yes, and this is where Toronto beat Winnipeg 16-14 in overtime. If we're looking at the Bomber stats here, Zach Caleros, 25 for 32, 317 yards, average of 9.9, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Brady Oliveira, 96 rushing yards on 13 carries with the longest of 26. Ontario Wilson with 129 receiving yards for 1 touchdown, 7 receptions, led the Bombers there. And Sergio Castillo with a bit of a rougher night, went 2 for 4. Whereas on the other side of things, with Toronto, Nick Arbuckle goes 12 for 22. So that is kind of a key thing this game, is that Nick Arbuckle does start this game against Winnipeg with his first one, as at this point Cameron Dukes was not starting. And Nick Arbuckle, though, again, only throws 87 yards. Kadeem Carey with 62 rushing yards. And Polk leads the charge, receiving only 49, and that was because Toronto, in that game, had not won with their offense, but had won with their defense. Near the end of the game, that touchdown was a pick 6 for McFadden. There was a lot of controversy with this one because this is a few things. Number one, this is when Nick Dembski didn't know how to hold on to the ball. He has since then figured out that issue and has actually been one of the best on the Bombers in terms of just ensuring to not give those opportunities up. So he kind of learned his lesson the hard way. But the other thing that was controversial about this is that myself and a lot of others did feel that this play was pass interference completely against the Argos. However, that was not the way it was called. And so then with that, it's just kind of it's an interesting thing because it was a very slow game. First and second quarter, both teams put up 3 points in the 3 points in the first, 3 points in the second. So 6-6 going into halftime. Both of them put up nothing in the third. Both put up 7 in the fourth quarter, and then a missed kick gives the Bombers a single in overtime, and then a field goal made by Haralahu gets them the win against Winnipeg. What did you kind of think of this game? If you're able to remember back to this game.
So it's funny because I was at both games.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So this one, the thing that I remember about this one was all of the sacks that Toronto's defense got. It was 5 altogether.
And that was in this one as well, because I know that was a huge problem for them. Yeah, no,
I'm talking about the first one.
Yeah,
the first.
Well,
game.
Toronto getting a lot of sacks against Winnipeg, and Calera's not getting time in the pocket was a huge issue for Winnipeg in both games. And it was Toronto's defense that was able to win them both games, and so I think looking into this Grey Cup, if you're Toronto, that's realistically going to be the way that you win. As it, first of all, it allowed you to get your 2 wins against them, and then also with Nick Arbuckle. I mean, you saw how much what they did with him in this first game, where Nick Arbuckle, again, only 22 attempts, only makes 12 of those. And so it's one of those things where the Argos don't have the confidence to really put him in a Chad Kelly kind of role. And so likely they're going to be able to try to get kind of a field goal here and there, maybe a touchdown if they can, and then rely on the defense to do the rest.
My thing that I'm looking forward to the most on Sunday, is Polk versus Wilson, the 2 upcoming rookies for each team. I'm not worried about Brady Oliveira. I'm not worried about Zach
Brady Oliveira
or Kadeem Carey. I'm looking, because if you think about it, if Polk doesn't step up, that means that Daniels or Cox is going to step up. And if one of those two don't step up,
and
then
Cox had a really strong game this past week. It was a strong kind of comeback game. But
and then the game that we were at in Winnipeg, week 19.
Yeah, week 19 between Winnipeg and Toronto. This is back when they were at home. Toronto, one of the few teams to get a win in Winnipeg against the Bombers, win 14-11 against the Bombers. This was kind of right. This was the last home game of the season for the Bombers. Zach Calera's 23 for 30, no touchdowns, 1 interception. Oliveira 64 rushing yards, 108 receiving yards for Kenny Lawler. And then on the Argo side of things, Chad Kelly played that game, 16 for 23, 2 of 3 passing yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. Kadeem Carey, only 39 rushing yards. That was their leading rusher. And Kelly and McMahon kind of got a little bit. And then Adeboye with a little bit as well. Is it Adeboye or is it Adebaboye? I think it's Adebaboye.
I always thought it was Adnaboye.
Well, it's not Adnaboye. There's no N. It's like, I think it's Adebaboye. It's a long one. Anyways, receiving Polk.
We'll get someone messaging us about this tomorrow.
There you go, Connor. You can send like a snap voice message of exactly how it's pronounced. And I'm not saying that in like a make fun of way. I'm saying that as I actually would like to know how to pronounce that name because it's long and fun. Like the guy who went 2 for 2 that night, which was Lyram Haralahu with his longest being a 44-yard kick for the Argos. Sergio Castillo in that game went 1 for 3. Again, it was one of those things. Sergio Castillo this year has had a very good year. However, his two of his probably his toughest games, both against Toronto. Defensively, Bombers were okay, but no sacks or interceptions. They were able to keep the Argos to 14 points. Tony Jones leading it with 9 tackles.
So there is one interception
For the Bombers?
Oh no, for the Argos.
Oh, okay, yeah, no. On the Argos side of things, yes, they did get an interception.
That and 7 sacks.
Yeah, Ormelad. And then, of course, notoriously, Zach Caleros had nowhere to go that game. 7 sacks for the Toronto Argonauts defensive line. And honestly, I think this is going to be a bold take. You know how there is the saying that games are won and lost in the trenches, Rick?
Yes.
This is that game. If the Toronto Argonauts defensive line cannot either sack or put subsequent pressure on Zach Caleros, the Argos are not winning. If they can provide the pressure, then it gives the opportunity for the offense to be able to get it done. The offense is not going to have an easy time. I'm not saying it's not possible. It is very much possible. But it is not. They are not going to have an easy time without kind of the torchbearer for them, which is being Chad Kelly. They won't have that. But the thing they got that will make all the difference is the defensive line. As they say, games won and lost in the trenches. Again, this also applies to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers in the sense of that the offensive line for Winnipeg being really damn good in some games and just an absolute train wreck in others. If the Bombers' O-line plays good against the Argos D-line, then the Bombers got it. If they play decent, I think it's a toss-up. If they fall apart, then the Argos could be looking at their second Grey Cup against Winnipeg in just 3 years.
With Arbuckle at the helm.
Which would just be the cherry on top. And I don't know if you know this, Rick. I don't like cherries.
Oh.
And so I don't. Fun fact,
okay.
I actually don't like cherries. But which would make it all the worse for me. As of course, Rick, you know exactly who I'm going for in this game. Everyone at home knows who I'm going for. If you couldn't tell by the 2 Bomber flags, Bomber jersey, the Bomber hat, the Bomber banner, the 2 Bomber jerseys in the background. Believe it or not, I'm cheering for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. And so
no, you don't.
No, I know it's shocking. I have to say it to the new viewers, Rick. We gotta. Anyways, I don't know. I'm just rambling on aimlessly, but So first of all, I mean that game in Winnipeg was pretty interesting for you. As first of all, that was your first time seeing a game at IG Field, Princess Auto Stadium,
IG Field turf.
Yes. How was that? You know.
I will just say, when I went to the tailgate, I saw some very interesting characters. We'll just leave it at that.
You'll just leave it at that. I know about a lot of our interesting characters. I know we got a guy dressed up as the Golden Boy. We have a luchador with like a
if you ever want to see
that look like it cost him $400.
If you ever want to see a crazy madman drive, just sit in Carter's car.
I was not that crazy.
Between that and Saskatchewan? Okay, guys. We don't have time to waste. Let's just go.
Oh, you're talking about once we arrived in Saskatchewan. Okay, that's not a crazy man driving. That's a guy driving in a hurry. And to be fair, I did not speed once.
Hold on. Or when we got back from Saskatchewan, we were going to the Jets game.
Again, didn't speed. I didn't.
To see you and your brother could go for a nice, what is it?
We
a
were
nice
stressed.
race marathon.
I'm not doing that. the no,
Wait, you and your brother were
although
running in the mall. I'm
actually,
like,
Rick,
oh my
you know who
lord.
the craziest driver was? It wasn't anyone in the vehicle. It was apparently someone in Regina, because they felt the need to put up the do not left and turn on a red light. Do not turn left on red, which, again, I don't know why you need a sign for that. So obviously, whoever the craziest driver is, it's the person that made that sign go up, because that sign only goes up if you find someone that's stupid. And so whoever's the reason that sign went up, they're the craziest driver.
Anyways,
Yeah, no, we're getting a little off topic. But
Yeah,
what did you think about that second game in Winnipeg between Toronto and the Bombers?
kind of thought like your guys' offensive line. Like I was actually quite shocked. I was wondering what it would be like a fly on the wall near you and Zach that game when you guys are watching your offensive line just like fall to pieces.
Oh yeah, no, it was a sad time. It was not good. Do we know who actually questioned? Do we know who the starting O-line for Winnipeg was that game?
Yes. Give me 1 second. Let me pull up my handy dandy.
Because that's actually like kind of important. So like
that part. Okay, so that was week 19. So that was Bryant, left tackle, Dobson, left guard, Kolinkowski, center,
Yep.
Newfield, and Lofton.
That's not good. You want to know why? That is the starting O line. That was with no backups in. So that's a little concerning. Okay, well, there's that. The was kind of hoping we had a backup in there and whatnot, and I could use maybe we didn't. Well, we did, and I think that will be. For Winnipeg, if there's anything that could be their Achilles heel in this game, it is that defensive line for the Argos. It's not the Argos secondary, it's the defensive line. If the O-line for the Bombers is able to hold the defensive line back long enough, I think the amount of skill between Zach Collaros and the Bombers receiving core can pick apart that secondary. But if you allow that defensive line for Toronto to become a problem, then it becomes more uncertain. But that was the two games earlier this year. Now we're going to look into playoffs, because that kind of, for both of these teams. We'll start with Toronto because they had the longer playoff run. Of course, they play against the Red Blacks in the first game. 58-38 victory for Toronto. Again, notoriously, Toronto in this game, one thing, if there's anything something like the Bombers can hope for, is that the Argonauts can give up a lot of points defensively. They gave up 38 to Ottawa. And because of that, I thought Montreal would be able to get it done the following week. They don't. They still give up 28 points to the Alouettes, but a 30-28 victory for the Argos, as they just barely hold on after losing their starting quarterback. The Argos were able to get the win in that. Not like Chad Kelly had played particularly great up to that point. Anyways, he was 50% and had 182 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. So not even a great game for Kelly. But Arbuckle was able to hold the fort. He went 5 for 8, so had a better completion percentage, 73 yards in only about a third of the opportunities. And no touchdowns, no interceptions either, though. So Nick Arbuckle actually put on a pretty solid performance there, and they were able to get the victory. For the Bombers, they had won the West, so they had a first round bye. Played Saskatchewan in the West Final and won 38-22 in a relatively commanding game. They only really give up a touchdown near the end because they kind of let up and more or less were just trying to force the Riders to go for short passes and to kill the clock down. Collaros, 19 for 26, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. Brady Oliveira, 119 rushing yards. And Kenny fucking Lawler, 4 receptions, 3 touchdowns, 177 yards.
This was the game where if your name's not Schaefer Baker, they ain't passing to you.
Yeah, no, Keanu Schaefer-Baker was the only guy that got any passes. He had 162 passing yards, 12 receptions, and I believe he had 17 targets. Is that right? Is that right?
Yeah.
No, so just a ludicrous amount of opportunities for Schaefer-Baker, for shake and bake, except for MLS. MLS got the touchdown for them, so you know.
You know, but I mean, if you think about him, between Schaefer Baker and MLS, they had 28 targets that game.
You know what might be worse than that is that MLS got 4 receptions on 11 targets. It was under 50%. So that might have been worse. But anyway, so man, there's a lot going into this. Can we look actually historically between these two? And I say that knowing that historically the record for Winnipeg against the Argos in the Grey Cup is actually pretty bad. Just because I know that people will want to hear it.
And if I'm not mistaken, I think the record goes back to 1987. If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, and so this will be interesting as let me see here. Now, the only thing I'm looking at is
Bum, 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 bum.
I'm looking into this, and do we know? Because I know Toronto is the most Grey Cups, but is there a list showing the most down to the least? Let me see here. Because I know. Let's see here. I know that Toronto. So Toronto is 18. The Alouettes have 8. Bombers have 12. Okay. Stamps have 8. Red Blacks have 1. Eskimos have, or Edmonton, I should say.
Ottawa. So it goes Toronto, Edmonton, Elks and Eskimos, Winnipeg, Hamilton, Calgary, Montreal, BC, Saskatchewan, Red Blacks.
Yeah. So if the Bombers win, this would capture them their 13th Grey Cup and put them just 1 behind Edmonton, who has 14. And if the Argos win, it would extend their lead in first place amongst most Grey Cups ever from 18 up to 19 Grey Cups.
And
however, it is important to mention that the Toronto Argonauts are the oldest team in the CFL.
Keep in mind, Carter's not going to like to hear this stat.
Yeah.
If Toronto wins, Winnipeg has the worst loss record at 17 games in 29 Grey Cup games since they have made the Grey Cup.
It's worse.
Right now
how many times has Saskatchewan made it? Because they only have 4 Grey Cups and they got like 19 appearances. They not?
So Saskatchewan's 4-15.
Okay.
BC's 6-4.
Okay, hold on a second.
Montreal's 8-11. Calgary's 8-9.
They're only 4-15. I thought they made the Grey Cup more.
No, they're only 4-15. Hamilton's 8-14.
And where are the Bombers?
Winnipeg's 12-16. Bombers are third.
Oh, like in third. You're talking third best win percentage.
Well, depends if you go by wins, Bombers third. If you go by winning percentage, they're fourth.
You said they're 12-6. You're talking. Oh, I thought you said 12 out of 16.
No, they're 12 and 16 out of
Okay, so
28 games.
12 out of 28. Okay, sorry. And then,
Yeah.
so that's 42%. Then the Riders
Point
are,
428. Riders are 2 points or 0.211.
you said they're what? Yeah, they're 4 and 19 out of 19.
4 and 15 out of 19.
Well, yeah. So Saskatchewan has the worst, even if Winnipeg loses.
Well, I mean,
Their winning percentage is just above 21%.
no, I'm not talking about the winning percentage. I'm just saying the number of losses.
Oh,
I'm
you're
not
saying
talking
they would
about
have the
winning
most
percentage
amount of losses.
of losses. I mean,
Oh, I mean, to
they
be
already
honest,
have the
I'm
most
worried more
amount of
about
losses.
Yeah, I was about to say, to be honest, I'd be more worried about the percentage because the percentage shows for the amount of times you get to the game, how many do you get it done? Because if you're just looking at losses, it also means okay, well that means they were in more games. You know what I mean?
If you're going by winning percentage, then Calgary's above you guys because they're
Yeah,
0.471.
yeah, fair enough. But anyways, so however, I think the Argos are 8. Are they 8-0 against Winnipeg in the Grey Cup? Another thing that's important to realize: the Toronto Argonauts are 151 years old, and that's, by the way, that's not an exaggeration. They actually are 151.
So to go back to your
To go back, we lost a Rick. We got to get Rick back on here. My apologies. I don't have any little loading soon music for a lost Rick. Hold on a second. Let's get Rick back in here. There we go. We're still recording, Rick. Don't worry.
Oh, okay. So about the whole one consecutively thing. So from 09 to 11, and this is in 19th century, University of Toronto Varsity Blues won 3 straight. From 1922 to 1924, Queen's University won 3 straight.
Yep.
Argos won 3 straight from 45 to 47. Eskimos first won 3 straight from 54 to 56. And then obviously, as Carter had mentioned earlier, their last one was 78 to 82.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was the Eskimos dynasty where they just won over and over again. And actually hold on a second. Actually, you know what's funny? They made the finals 6 times in a row. But they lost in 77 to Montreal, then won in 78, 79, 80, 81, and 82. They beat the Alouettes twice. They beat the Ticats. They beat the Ottawa Rough Riders, and then the Toronto Argonauts in their last year. And then Toronto would win the next year, and change the status quo in that sense. But I'm just looking through here.
Outside of the recent years before they were head coaches, Mike O'Shea is obviously 2-2 in Grey Cups. He won 3 with Toronto as a player, 96 and 97 in 04.
Yeah.
And 1 as a special teams coordinator in 12.
Yeah.
Ryan Didwitty is 1-0 as a head coach, but he also started the 95 or the 95th Grey Cup with Winnipeg against Saskatchewan in 07. He dressed in for the 98th and 10, won a Grey Cup as the quarterbacks coach with Calgary in 18.
Yeah. It's funny. I'm looking here at actually some of the other stats. This will be the 10th time that BC Place hosts the Grey Cup game, which will be the 17th time that the city of Vancouver will be hosting the event. Just kind of a fun fact here that I'm just looking through.
Zach Claris is 2 for 3 as starter in the Grey Cup, including victories in 19 and 21. He was also part of Toronto's 2012 winning Grey Cup team.
I see. You're saying he's 2 and 3 as a starter? the Grey Cup?
Correct.
And he started that game? The other one?
He started. I mean, he was probably the backup.
Yeah, okay, so, but I wouldn't consider that a starter, because we're talking starting roster, right? Because if it's starting roster, I think he only started in Winnipeg.
They just say he was a part of.
Oh, okay, well.
But you got to remember, so he lost to Montreal. He lost to Toronto, so there's 2 losses there.
Yeah.
And then there's one other one, and then he won the 2 in Hamilton.
Yeah. Yeah, I see. Okay. And so if we're looking, one thing we will look at, as much as I don't like looking at it, we're going to look back to the game, the 109th Grey Cup between the Toronto Argonauts and the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. This was where the Argos won their 18th Grey Cup, and the Bombers were denied the three-peat at Mosaic Stadium. It was the first time that the new Mosaic Stadium had hosted the event, and it was the 4th time that the Grey Cup had went to Regina. It was a 24-23 victory for the Toronto Argonauts, with Winnipeg putting up a big fat donut in the first quarter, then getting 10 in the second, 7 in the third, 6 points in the fourth quarter. Toronto putting up a field goal in the first, 4 points in the second, 7 in the third, and 10 in the fourth quarter. Again, just getting back, just kind of edging out at the end. Hinoc Mwamba, linebacker for the Toronto Argonauts at the time, was most valuable player and most valuable Canadian. The favorite going into the game was the Bombers, but they were not able to get the victory. Dinwiddie would get a Grey Cup ring, of course. O'Shea, coach for the Bombers in that one, did not get it.
Things have changed since then. Who would have thought?
Oh, yeah. And
this was only 2 years ago.
Yeah, and this was Jordan Davis, Tyler Hubbard, and Josh Ross performed the halftime show, which I'm
This
not
is
really
when McLeod
familiar
Bethel
with.
Thompson was starter in Toronto.
Yeah, and then Chad Kelly kind of goes in near the end of that game due to Bethel Thompson going down, and then, of course, Chad Kelly kind of then becomes the torchbearer for Toronto moving forward, kind of coming out of that.
And this is I think this is the same thing with Andrew Harris, the last, because then AJ Ouellette became AJ Ouellette.
No, that's true. And then, so now there's one thing we do have to talk about, Rick. Thankfully, we don't have to talk about it for very long. And it's about that with every Grey Cup comes a either memorable or not so memorable halftime show. And Rick, I hope this one's not going to be memorable. I know we have a few viewers who are a fan of the Jonas Brothers. My girlfriend is giving me the stare right now, also known as They Suck. Here, tell all the viewers at home.
They suck.
They do.
They
I know they do.
All I know is I won't be able to watch the performance because, unlike you, you'll be watching it. And I will be live streaming to our lovely viewers.
That's right. Rick will be live streaming this game. I will not be with him on the stream. However, there will be maybe portions of the game where I will probably
call Rick in, folks.
I'll call in. Yeah, exactly. It'll be like Deal or No Deal, where you call the banker and you're like, hey, can we call this guy, see if he gives us a terrible offer? You know what I mean? Because it was always a terrible offer in Deal or No Deal. How many times did the banker give an offer and they're like, oh, that sounds great, and take it? No. Banker always was like, oh yeah, we have $1 million on the board. How's $7,000 sound?
You know what's gonna be even worse is when you guys host the Grey Cup next year. Mm-hmm. And you guys have some horrible band playing the halftime show.
Rick, we don't know who it is yet, so we can't judge.
Worse than the Jonas Brothers.
Worse than the Jonas Brothers? Does that exist? Does it exist?
I mean, I'm sure it's. I'm sure there's someone worse than.
No.
I'm sure there's someone worse than the Jonas Brothers.
Yeah, there might be. Who knows? But then again, you guys got Green Day, so I try to keep my hopes up a little bit.
I mean, unless you bring like the Backstreet Boys back.
Okay, not gonna lie, that would kind of be funny. Like I wouldn't enjoy it, but I just kind of be like, this is like
Your girlfriend's like, oh, my good old high school days.
oh.
Actually, no, that was my high school days. What am
No,
I
her
talking
high
about?
school days was Green Day.
No, I'm talking about my high school days.
He's like,
it was all about
oh,
freaking.
maybe the Backstreet Boys are all taking her back to her high school days. I'm like, no, probably Green Day was. How's it going, babe?
Great.
You enjoying that?
Very much.
I'm still recording, by the way.
And she still doesn't care.
Yeah, no, she's just on the ground building Lego. She's having a lot of fun.
She's just gonna sit with you guys on Sunday with a sign that says Jonas.
Oh no,
Brothers
no,
suck.
no, she's not gonna be here. Because she knows that my eyes are gonna be glued to the TV, and so
Yeah, so she's gonna be sitting there on the couch that has a sign that says Jonas Brothers suck.
she's gonna sit there with a sign that says Jonas Brothers suck all game. That checks out. Yeah.
That sounds like me.
Well, no, you know what it is. The second the band performs, she's gonna be like, "Excuse me," stand up, walk over, grab the remote, mute, and then walk back to her spot. It'll be something, but that is the halftime show this year, and I hope that they get a Mike O'Shea speech through the whole thing, so that way they keep them motivated, because the Jonas Brothers can be very demoralized. I know we have viewers that like the Jonas Brothers, and it's fine. You're entitled to your opinion. You can like the Jonas Brothers, and you know that my opinion is that they suck. Fair enough. I know we're gonna get comments about this, Rick. I know we will.
Not me. It's gonna be all you, my friend.
I know it's me. That's because I talk the most shit out of the two of us, and so. But anyways,
here, you were talking about the list of all of the Grey Cups from the beginning to the end. There you go.
well, I have the list of all them total. I was
No,
just,
this goes from all the way from 1909
Yeah, no, I have that list. Okay, so
to
then
2026.
So yeah, most recently if we're looking at the matchup between Winnipeg, Toronto wins 24-23. Then if we wind the clock back, the last time these two faced each other in the finals was I'm just looking back here. I'm backing it up right now. Ooh, when was the last time before that they faced off? Holy crap. Most of the times they faced each other was a while ago. So that would be back. When did they? I've heard that they faced off 8 times. Okay, here we go. The last time before that, oh my God, was in 1947, where the Argos won 10-9. You want to talk about a boring football game? Then in 1946, the year prior.
Nope.
What?
1950, Toronto beat Winnipeg 13
That's
to
right.
nothing.
13-0. Oh my God, they got a shutout in the Grey Cup. That's crazy. 1950. Then 1947, Toronto beats Winnipeg 10-9. 1946, Toronto beats Winnipeg 28-6. And then actually, here's the worst one. Then 1945, Toronto beats Winnipeg 35-0. So, and actually, you know what might be the worst? Is that Winnipeg lost to Toronto bang, 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 3 consecutive years.
Hold on. It
Ouch.
gets worse. It gets worse. 38, Toronto beat Winnipeg 30-7. Talk about a boring game. 1937, Toronto won 4-3.
4-3. Hey, at least in that one, unlike 1945, we got points. A 4-3 football game is crazy. It's funny. I'm looking through here, And it's funny seeing the different, like, what team names for football teams used to be. Like, your 1930 Grey Cup champions, the Toronto Balmy Beach Beachers. Ladies and gentlemen, Grey Cup champions, the Toronto Balmy Beach Beachers. It's like, have you ever been to Toronto? There's no beaches. There's no beaches. They have a coastline, but or not coastline, but they have like the lake there, but they don't really have much beaches.
1925, when you guys were the Winnipeg Tammy Tigers.
Yeah, 1925 Winnipeg, known as the Tammy Tigers. God, some of these names are horrible. It actually makes the name back in 1920, of course, when Toronto lost to themselves, where the Toronto Argonauts lost to the University of Toronto Varsity Blues. It's funny, everyone at home's like, they're just having too much fun going back and looking at the silly names.
Carter, look at
alerts.
Look at 1940, December 2nd, 1,700 fans at a Grey Cup. I wouldn't even know what that looks like.
1,700 fans at a Grey Cup. That's
fans.
wild. Is that the lowest? It's got to be the lowest attendance, surely. What's the highest attendance? I see one at 68,000.
So 68,000, 1977 Olympic Stadium was 68,205.
It's just kind of funny because they still have Olympic Stadium, but they don't use it.
Outside of that is Commonwealth, 63,317, and that's in 2010.
Yeah, and Commonwealth is a big venue. It'll be good this year because of the good size of BC Place. But all in all, it's funny. You could tell we were just having some fun and going back. Should we now kind of go in maybe position by position the matchup?
Sure.
So we got to start with quarterback. We're looking between Zach Collaros and Nick Arbuckle. And so let's maybe read off a bit of the stats here. I'm going to have to pull them up.
Okay, so Nick Arbuckle went 65 for 100 for 65%. 799 yards, 4 touchdowns, 3 interceptions.
Yeah.
Zach Collaros went 342 for 488, 70.1%, 4,336 yards, 17 touchdowns, and 15 interceptions.
Yeah. So it's kind of hard to compare that in the sense of that because Arbuckle hasn't played very much, it really doesn't give a good frame of reference. You know what I mean? Just looking back here. It's funny, if Zach Collaros needs anything, you know what Zach Collaros needs to do? He needs to funnel the energy from his current undefeated friend in Travis Kelce, as the Kansas City Chiefs are 9-0 in the NFL. He needs he needs some of that energy to transmit to himself to get him the victory. But so I think we can confidently say that the advantage when it comes to quarterback goes to Zach Collaros. I don't think it's.
You don't say.
I don't think that this is really a comparison. In the sense of, you can make a comparison about whether Nick Arbuckle is good enough to get it done. Maybe you can say that he is. Fair enough. But if we're just arguing just on a objective level, who is better, I don't think it is arguable.
Looking at his career numbers, if you're going by yards wise, his best year was in 22 when he went 291 for 423. He threw 3,292 yards. He threw 6 touchdowns, 14 interceptions.
I see. 6 touchdowns, and this was for
2022 when he was with Edmonton.
You were talking
but but his actual best year was in 19 when he went 174 for 238, 2,103 yards, 11 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions.
Yeah. But that'll bring us kind of to our next bit here, which will be our running backs, which, of course, is between Brady Oliveira and Kadeem Carey. Now, the interesting thing here is that the difference between the two in some stats is actually not that huge, in the sense of that if we're looking at carries, Brady Oliveira, 239 carry rushes, 191 for Kadeem Carey, at 1,060 yards for Kadeem Carey, 1,353 for Brady Oliveira. So he's got about an extra 300. Keep in mind, Brady Oliveira also has one less game played, so that number is most likely higher. However, Kadeem Carey, 7 touchdowns, 3 for Brady Oliveira. Important thing to kind of keep in mind. I can't really speak to the way that Toronto plays their offense, but when it comes to short yardage, which there's a decent amount of short yardage touchdowns for the Bombers, Brady Oliveira is not the ball carrier in that. So that's kind of one reason for that. An average of 5.66 for Brady Oliveira, 5.55 for Kadeem Carey, so very, very minimal difference in that regard. Now, where I think the biggest difference is actually if we look at their yards receiving, where Brady Oliveira this year has a 476 receiving yards, whereas, or actually, this actually isn't that far off. I didn't realize that Kadeem Carey had as much. He had 356 receiving. Again, that is with an extra game played for Kadeem Carey. He played a full 18. Brady Oliveira only 17. So not the biggest differences in stats-wise.
So,
if you look at Brady Oliveira, it is interesting to see how he kind of got those numbers going a lot better, kind of a bit later into the season. But
just to point out a few things, Oliveira would be 4th on total team receiving, behind Dembski, Wilson, and Lawler. Carey would be 5th behind Polk, Coxey, Daniels, Unger the third, and then him, as far as receiving yards.
Yeah. So now, and then also important to mention, Brady Oliveira was nominated for both Most Outstanding Canadian as well as Most Outstanding Player this season. However, Kadeem Carey, definitely not a bad running back by any means, was able to get to have a decent amount of success with Toronto Argonauts. If we're looking at the advantage in the run game, I have to imagine that we go with Brady Oliveira with this, even though I do think the disparity in terms of skill level between Brady Oliveira and Kadeem Carey is closer than it is between Zach Caleros and Nick Arbuckle. Would you say that's a fair assessment, Rick?
Yes.
Now, this is where it gets a little bit interesting. Rick, are you able to, can you pull up the number of sacks given up this year by the O-line of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, as well as the, not the Saskatchewan Roughriders, the Toronto Argonauts?
You mean on the quarterbacks, you mean?
Yeah, like just amount of sacks given up.
Okay, so.
But it's because we're talking about the offensive lines.
Okay, so you have 36 for Winnipeg.
Okay.
16, 39.
You said
40
how many
for Toronto.
So how many for Winnipeg, sorry?
36.
36 for
and
Winnipeg.
That's including Stravler and Wilson.
Okay.
And then 40 if you include the 16 on Kelly, the 23 on Dukes, and then the 1 on Arbuckle.
I didn't realize that Toronto actually had more sacks given up. I thought Winnipeg was higher.
But Winnipeg has the most by one single quarterback.
Oh. Okay.
Toronto's over the matter of 3.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm not going to lie. I don't really think that kind of matters as much in the sense that that's because Toronto wasn't able to play Chad Kelly for a while. Because at the end of the day, if you're the offensive line, if a sack is given up, it doesn't really matter what quarterback is behind you. That's your responsibility to protect them. So I would actually. So all
So
in
you
all,
figure he had in the 8 games that Chad Kelly played, he had 16 sacks. That's almost like 2 per game.
yeah. But the thing you have to realize, Rick, is that the amount of sacks given up doesn't really matter, again, who the quarterback is, because that is a reflection of the offensive line's ability to protect the house, protect the quarterback, protect the pocket. Obviously, some quarterbacks will manage that situation in different ways. But it is, again, that is a reflection of the offensive line. And so I think both teams obviously gave up a lot more than they would have preferred. Zach Caleros, of course, getting sacked most in terms of as a individual quarterback, most sacks given up. But all in all, it's gonna go to. I think there's a slight, at least the numbers say there's a slight edge towards Winnipeg in this. But again, as we've seen, there has been some real duds of games for that offensive line for Winnipeg. And so it really could go either way. I think this is probably close enough to where we could kind of rule this as a bit of a tie between Winnipeg and Toronto is in that offensive line, where with Winnipeg, it just really depends on the game, where that O-line can be absolutely stellar, or as they played against Toronto last time near the end of the season, absolutely terrible, where they just completely fell apart. What would be kind of your assessment of that?
I mean, I don't know. Some people say, oh, Toronto had one of the best offensive lines. But I mean, even if you add up all the numbers. Okay, so let's just, again, Hamilton's not in the playoffs, but I'm just curious to see. 26, and then we had 3, and so we only had 30 sacks against our quarterback.
Yeah.
So I mean, the amount of sacks. So out of the whole league, across all 9 teams, there's 323 sacks.
Okay.
Throughout the whole season, out of all teams,
Which would be about an average of 36 a game, roughly. That's 35.8, which means that actually the Bombers are pretty much right where kind of they should be in that sense.
But
I
don't know. Some people have good games. Some people have bad games. It is what it is.
Yeah, I think it's fair enough to kind of consider that to be a to be a tie in terms of how close those two margins could be. But then that does bring us to the receiver core, which means that we have Daniels, Coxey, and Polk against, and I'm just looking at kind of your main 3 there, against Lawler, Lawler, Dembski, and Wilson.
Yes.
And so, and I'm saying Dembski. I know he didn't practice, but he's been doing a lot of media stuff in his in full equipment. And I would be shocked if Dembski didn't play. I'm gonna be completely real here.
Dembski's nothing, anyways. It's all about Lawler.
But yeah, with Kenny Lawler, with Kenny Lawler, I mean, first of all,
the GOAT.
last game, 177 receiving yards. Obviously, no one I think expects quite that much in this next game. But even if he plays half that good, still able to put up a lot of offensive production for the Bombers. And it's one of those things where Winnipeg has the long ball capability. And that's where Toronto has to be careful, is in the sense of that with Nick Arbuckle, I think that's where I question his capability. It's not in the sense of the possibility of being able to make those short bullet passes, but when you want to go long, is he able to do the long ball, to be able to kind of push it down the field in that regard. And as much as you need capable receivers, guys like Polk that have been able to get it done, guys like Coxie last game, guys like Tavares Daniels who's been there for a while, I'm not sure if I have the confidence that Nick Arbuckle would be able to kind of hold up his end of the bargain in that regard. What is kind of your opinion on the skill level between the two receiving cores?
I mean, with the three from Toronto, any one of them can step up at any given night. You don't
That's
know.
very true.
It almost kind of reminds me of like Montreal. Like Philpott would step up, then Janarian Grant would step up, Austin Mack would step up one night.
Then Rambo has a great game,
But then you have Winnipeg. Dembski is, top receiver one night. Wilson out of nowhere is the top receiver. Lawler has some ridiculous.
Yeah. I think Lawler probably consistently gets that title the most. Dembski kind of gets it a few times, and then Ontario Wilson will occasionally just have one of those games where he just flies off the rails. And it's important to mention that Dalton Schoen is still under contract for Winnipeg, but it's just he's been out the entire season and it will of course be out this game on injury. And so it'll be interesting to see if the Bombers are able to kind of keep him coming around for their next year. I believe it was a multi-year deal when they signed that. I can't quite remember. But it's just kind of interesting with one of their better receivers, how he's not in this game, and yet we're still talking about a very, very elite level receiving core. I think Rick, you just searched up if it was a multi-year deal or not. Is that right?
Darn right I did.
And results.
It was
1 or 2 years. I'm genuinely curious.
I believe it was a 1 year deal.
Okay, well, who knows? Maybe they're able to keep him around. Maybe they're not. But anyways, it's just interesting seeing how much talent the Bombers have with a guy like that still on the shelf. Now, personally, what?
Just to go back to this Dalton Schoen thing is, they signed him for a 1 year, $230,000 contract, and he's been out for the whole season.
Yeah, well, to be fair, you have to realize he's been on the 6th game the whole year, so it hasn't cost the Bombers much. It's cost the league. Because the league's covering the salary when a guy's on the 6th game. So, but realistically, the Bombers have probably paid him about $10,000, and that's about it.
True.
So,
anyways, you're about to say? Yes.
Who do you favor between the two receiving cores?
And this is a big if Chad Kelly was playing instead of Arbuckle, I would have said Toronto. But because Arbuckle's playing instead of Chad Kelly, I'm going.
Okay, so you think
Winnipeg.
The Toronto Argonauts receiving core, they have a stronger receiving core. However, they may not be as effective because of the quarterback
Chad
that they're
Kelly.
playing with. So you're saying
Correct.
that you think Winnipeg will end up with more receiving yards, but if you essentially had the same court, if you had Zach Caleros playing on both teams, you would take Coxie, Daniels, and Polk over.
I would
Lawler,
take
Dempsey.
Toronto over.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's funny. It's one of those things where I kind of view this similar to the offensive line, where both teams are very, very capable of performing on a given night. And I think it's very interesting when you look on paper, because again, on paper, the Saskatchewan Roughriders receiving core, I think you can make an argument that they are better than the Bombers or that they are equal to the Bombers. However, last game for them just wasn't their night. And so it really, really depends on that. And with kind of a different guy at the helm for Toronto, I don't think you'd be getting the same capabilities. I do think that the receiving core matchup between these two teams is very, very close. Of course, I have my Bomber biases towards Winnipeg, just being completely honest. And so there's a part of me that, kind of views them in a bit of a different light and thinks that they're a little bit better. If I'm looking objectively, I think I can objectively say that they're about even, to the point where you can make an argument for both sides. But that kind of wraps up offensively the comparison between the two, which then brings us to the defense, which, Rick,
Yes.
we're starting with the defensive line and Toronto versus Winnipeg. I love Winnipeg's D-line. I love guys like Willie Jefferson.
Like Toronto's more.
I love Jake Thomas. I like Haba. I like Garbutt. I like all those guys that we end up in there. I got to give this one to Toronto. That defensive line for the Toronto Argonauts has been an absolute well-oiled machine this year. And they have caused a lot of problems for the Bombers and a lot of other teams. And I don't think, and I think that is very much, that is how it is in that sense. If I'm looking here at their defensive line, Jared Brinkman, Jake Serezna. Actually, I'm going to go through all their defensive linemen, starters and backups. Woody Barron, Jared Brinkman, Jake Serezna, Isaiah Chambers, Jalen Green, Theodric Hansen, Tyson Hergott, Ralph Hawley, Falerian Ormelad, Derek Parrish, and Robbie Smith. Of course, we've had both Jared Brinkman and Derek Parrish interview on the channel. Those are, so make sure you guys check those out. Very good interviews with both of them. But
you want to know something scary?
What's something scary?
The top 6 of the Argos sack leaders are defensive linemen.
I mean, yeah, to be fair, it will almost always be defensive line, because I mean there's linebackers too. But I mean, naturally, think of it this way: the defensive linemen will be pressuring the quarterback every play. The linebackers will some of the plays. And it depends if they have a blitz or not, or if they're playing outside contain or whatever that role is. I'm sure actually the numbers probably would be similar on the Bombers in that regard, just because of the position they're playing. But the Argos have shown that their greatest asset on their team is a defensive line, and when it comes to moving the needle on potentially winning or potentially losing games, I actually think the defensive line is more of a factor than Chad Kelly is at quarterback. Maybe a bit of a hot take, but I think the defensive line and their performance can win or lose games for the Toronto Argonauts because of how damn good they are. They are so good. And it is probably the number one thing to look out for any team facing Toronto is, can you contain the D-line, or are they just going to run wild and run over your quarterback?
I can honestly say, no matter who wins on Sunday, these teams will not be the same next year.
Yeah. Because
now that they have that new media money out and everything, people will want their paychecks.
There's gonna be some paychecks. Although I think teams might want to have some contract clauses in there about how, if we're gonna pay you $100,000 to do media, maybe more than 5 seconds is what they would ask for. Nathan Rourke, kind of looking at you on that one, gets paid like $150K in media bonuses just to be like, oh yeah, that's great, bye, and then run off. It's like, this guy makes more than like anyone else in modern society, gets paid $150,000 in media appearances to not even appear for 10 seconds. Like, seriously. It's like even the shortest YouTube ads are longer than that. But no, if going back to defensive line, Rick, there's a lot of capabilities in the Winnipeg defensive line. Willie Jefferson is a veteran defensive end in this league. He will knock that ball down. He will get in the back. He will get those sacks. and is still a elite defensive lineman. Jake Thomas, in my opinion, one of the most overlooked defensive linemen and a force for the Bombers. Both of them have been outstanding and have been stellar throughout their career. But looking objectively as a four-man unit, the Argos definitely are the favorite in that regard. Is there anything else that you would have for the defensive lines of these two teams?
You pretty much have it covered.
So that then brings us to the linebackers, Rick. And what is your thoughts on the linebackers between the two teams?
Give me 1 second.
Whether that's
I actually have to,
because they got McManus, they got Aldiki, Darkangelo, Jonathan Jones, Nicastro, Sopik, Tolson, Williams. For looking at the Argos side of things,
Adeleke is mostly a defensive back, not a linebacker.
I know. I see that he's listed under here.
No, I'm just going through.
Yeah. If we're looking on the Bomber side of things, they got Tony Jones, Cramdy, of course, Adam Big Hill in there, but he will not be playing this game. Kyrie Wilson, Griffin, Gauthier, Cadwallader, and Ayers. But mostly that would go for Kyrie Wilson, Reddick Cramdy, and Tony Jones.
So McManus is the big point on the Toronto linebacker group.
I think for Winnipeg, if we're looking at guys playing, it's definitely Tony Jones. Adam Bighill, of course, the staple veteran presence, but he will, again, he's injured, so he will not be in there. An important thing to mention, though, is if the injury happens on the Bomber linebacker core, like let's say Wilson goes down, rather than putting Ayers in, what the Bombers actually do is they'll bring Brendan Alexander down from safety to outside linebacker, and then Jake Kelly will play safety for Winnipeg. And so Brendan Alexander, he'll be playing full safety, but if there's an injury, you would see him at linebacker. So an important thing to kind of see there. And I think, honestly, one of the best things that the Bombers have been able to do this year defensively has been Jordan Younger's use of and his zone coverage of the linebackers and his spacing and where he's put them and putting them in opportunities, not necessarily to always get an interception, but to be able to get in front of those balls, to be able to knock that out and prevent them from moving down the field. That's at least my kind of being my observation for Winnipeg, at least.
So, if we are going to the backfield, it's just so hard to pick a group out of this. I honestly can't even pick a winner out of the secondary.
I'm not gonna lie. I personally think so. We're looking at just linebackers here, not the full secondary.
I'm talking about the two corners, the two halfbacks, and the safety. Just the secondary.
Okay. Well, I mean, I thought we were going through linebackers first, and then we're getting there.
Well, no. Well, I didn't have anything else to add on to linebackers.
Okay. So who would you say for linebackers though has the edge, or would you say even? Personally, I think it's Winnipeg. I think it's close, but I think the Bombers, even with Adam Bighill out, I think they just have a little bit more depth there. Personally, and I understand my biases.
If you're asking me McManus or Jones for like the leader of the linebacker group, I would go with McManus.
Yeah. See, I could see that for just a 1v1, but I'm talking as a unit, as a 3-man unit. I think Reddick Cramdy, his potential to just be a complete problem causer for opposing teams. As I think I believe it was against the Argos in the game in Toronto or Winnipeg. I think it was in the game in Toronto. He caused a lot of issues. He caused a lot of issues for the Ticats in their game against Winnipeg in Winnipeg. So personally, I go with the Bombers, but I do understand kind of the taking McManus over Tony Jones in just the 1-to-1 direct. So pretty close in that regard. In secondary, I'm taking Winnipeg. I'm totally taking Winnipeg. As I think the strength of the defense for Toronto is almost fully dependent on the performance of the defensive line. I think that with Winnipeg, I think the secondary they have is so damn good that they can bail out a defensive line that maybe isn't playing the best. As even when they weren't getting sacks, like even look at the games against BC, Winnipeg wasn't necessarily racking up a shit ton of sacks, but they still shut out the Lions. Why is that? It's because they were able to get in front of those balls, knock them down, get an interception sometimes. Terrell Ford, great example of that. But even if you look at a guy like Evan Holm, he hasn't. I don't even think he has a single interception this year. But if you look at how well he has done in getting his hands in there, causing problems without taking pass interference penalties, and putting a halt to the opposing team's drive, I think Evan Holm has been particularly good in that regard. And so if we're looking at secondary, I'm very confident in what Jordan Younger is being able to do with the secondary. Now, if we look at the Argos, do we know if Deshaun Amos is playing in this game?
He played last game.
Okay, because I know that he was dealing with a little bit of an injury thing after the first game, so that's why I was asking.
No, he played last week against Montreal.
Yeah. Okay, and then I see they got here: Bryce Hampton, Haggerty, McFadden was a name that they had in there.
Mechie, yeah.
Yep, Royce Mechie. At the end of the day, I'm more familiar with Winnipeg's secondary. But again, I've always felt this year like Toronto's defensive capabilities have relied on that D-line. Not saying that's a bad thing, but I'm just saying is that I think their D-line has been kind of the big reason for breaking up plays. And that if just left to the secondary, then it's a little bit more dicey. And I think if you're the secondary for Toronto, you'll be kind of an essential unit as, again, I think Toronto, in terms of trying to get the victory over Winnipeg, they would be looking for a very defense-led performance from them, as I think that would give them the best opportunity against the Bombers. Now, I do see here that we're missing Rick once again as his stream crashed, but he should be coming back here soon. Oh, did we got Rick again? Not sure what happened. It crashed again. There's Rick.
I was going to say, I just seen a black screen.
Yeah, I know. I noticed that. I'm like, oh, Rick disappeared. Look at that. Oh, no. But
what a shocker.
All in all, I give the Bombers the slight edge in the secondary with again,
I honestly
with
I can't pick either side.
Flip the coin, Rick says. You know, he's down the middle. Fair enough. No, yeah. I do think it's important to ask you in the sense of course, I'm always going to have my Bomber biases. I'll try to put them aside. But
with that being said, we are going to go down to Carter's favorite thing, the motherfucking kickers.
This is difficult. Difficult in the sense of that I think Sergio Castillo is very, very good. However, again, he had some rough games against the Argos. And Haralahu, we're talking about a veteran kicker that has been here for a very long time and has done very well for the Argos. I think it is pretty darn close between these two.
Oh, Carter, that's not the response I thought I was going to hear from you.
That's not the response you thought you were. Well, I got to be honest.
I thought you'd be like, listen, this is...
Again, Sergio Castillo does come in clutch.
He can hit 60-yarders, folks. He's going to come in.
He can hit 60-yarders. That is a true fact. True fact right there. He also can take great pictures. He does camera work on the side.
And Carter's having second thoughts about his kicker this game.
That's not true at all. It's funny. I'm trying to like search up Haralahu right now so I can find his stats, and I'm just struggling to spell the last name. I learned how to. I learned how to. I learned how to say it,
Why
but
not
I
just
still.
use CFL.ca's player stats?
I am. But I searched up his name so I could. You know what I mean? So I could find it in there. But if we're looking here,
Well, if
if
you
we're
search by
looking
Toronto,
at
it's the first.
kicking,
It's the only kicker.
although here's the thing, longest field goal for Haralahu this year, 51 yards. Sergio Castillo with 60, as he is just a incredible specimen. And if we're looking here, he had made 51 field goals on 64 attempts. If we're looking here for Haralahu, 61 attempts for him, and he had made 55. So slightly better percentage for Haralahu, but very, very close. And again, a few of the missed ones for Castillo with the chip balls in the first game. So kind of a important thing to keep in mind
Here we go again.
this year. What was this? Sorry?
I said, here we go again, but then I'm like, just kidding.
No, but we can't ignore it. We have to at least acknowledge it. But 191 points put up for Castillo this year as the kicker, and 200 for Haralahu. He hit 1,000. I believe it was 1,000 point, or no, it wasn't 1,000. How many points did he hit? How many points did he had broken a record this year, Haralahu. Was it 1,000?
Oh,
I'm trying to remember what it was.
something like that.
He had put up a record, although I'm looking here because it's not 1,000 because his career kicking is 866 in points. Unless I'm missing something. This is from CFL.ca. Yeah, I feel like I'm missing something in here.
Probably are.
Haralahu record. Maybe most as he had 8 field goals in a game. And so that tied the record. That's what it was. And he tied the professional football record as he's the first for CFL and NFL, and is the first player to make 8 field goals in a game since 2007. That's what it was. But all in all, between the two, I think Castillo has shown that he is able to kick further than Haralahu. I think Haralahu has shown that he is slightly more consistent than Castillo. So I think the difference in kicking kind of evens out. And I think you're looking at kind of pretty even down the middle. I think it's that you could go either way with that. But again, I do think the capabilities of having a kicker who can go for that long kick when you really need it is really important. But again, Castillo this year, not with a great performance in the head-to-head against Toronto specifically. So who knows? Maybe he's got a little bit of a boogeyman against him. Is there what would your take be on the matchup between Haralahu and Castillo?
I mean, each kicker has their own
Strengths.
their own things.
Yep. That's true.
Castillo can do the long kicks, but then both kickers can kick within 50 yards. So,
Yeah.
I mean, you can't use the win for an excuse this game. So it's pretty much you make.
That'll be the fun thing is that neither kicker can blame it on the win because they're in an indoor building. Maybe one of them hits the score clock. That'd be kind of fun. Although they're not as good as the greatest punter to ever live, Vernon Adams Jr. when in the West semifinal, he got to punt.
I wonder if Ben Major is going to be reffing Sunday's game.
Oh, you have to imagine that they put Ben Major on there, unless they drag Andre Pruitt out there, and they'll be like, all right, You gotta call pass interference. You gotta get us some ratings, Andre Pruitt.
No, get Andre Pruitt to say, as Ben Major would say, he did it again. He kicked the scoreboard, but
Except Andre Pruitt would say it a lot slower than that. But no, I imagine that they're gonna have Ben Major officiate reffing this game. So
only because it's in Winnipeg and someone's gonna hit
no,
the
because
scoreboard.
it's in BC Place and they're hoping that someone hits the friggin' score clock.
Yeah, that's what
but
I was just saying.
They don't have Flintloff
at least
playing,
one.
so who knows? Well, it was always
At least
Flintloff
once.
to hit it, so who knows because he's not playing. So,
True.
That I think wraps us up with our and then kickoff and punt returners, because I know Toronto fans will be wanting to hear this. Janarian Grant's the favorite of the two. Lucky Whitehead, good returner, but Janarian Grant's the favorite of the two. And we don't even.
I don't know because if you have good special team coverage, then he may not get the yards.
Well, you know what it is? Well, yes, but I'm talking if we look objectively, if the circumstances are the exact same and the only thing that was different was the returner, Grant's a better returner. That's what I'm saying.
True.
Because that's kind of the way you have to look at it in terms of that head-to-head, position by position. But all in all, I think we've gone through all the positions. I think we now have to go towards the $1 million question, Rick.
And an hour and 25-minute later question.
Exactly, an hour and 25 minutes.
Is she still awake or is she sleeping beside you?
She's lying down. She's chilling.
Did she finish that Lego?
Yeah, she did. Actually, everyone want to see the set? It was a Lego Harry Potter set. She built the potions classroom. She did a great job. I'm hitting the mic with it. She did a great job with this. Everyone congratulate her in the comment section down below. I will share those comments with her.
A fun fact, Carter is a Lego nerd.
Oh, I totally am. I absolutely.
And he doesn't hide it.
No, I don't hide it. And by not hiding it, I present you with a giant fucking TIE fighter.
Yeah.
Many other oddities. We have a
for when my
Yoda
trip
up there, and Optimus Prime is chilling out on my shelf.
For when I came down to visit Carter in Winnipeg.
Oh, Rick,
my lord! If anyone was gonna rob someone's house, I'm not trying to say this in a bad way. Someone breaks into Carter's house, they're definitely not stealing the Legos.
Actually, they probably are. Lego's worth quite a lot.
Wouldn't. Yeah, but okay, they may steal your Star Wars Lego, but I mean, they probably wouldn't know what it's worth.
Depends. I don't know. People who are looking to rob valuables will probably try to know what's valuable, what's not. You know what's funny? They may not know what's valuable, but they'll be like, "Oh, that looks cool."
Go to Dave Hester. Yeah, what's this worth?
Oh my god.
On Storage Wars.
Yep. Friggin' Storage Wars. Oh my god. That show sucked, but like everyone watched it and it was kind of fun.
Darn right we did. Anyways, Who
wins the 111th Grey Cup? Rick.
As a Ticat fan, I'm going Winnipeg.
As a Bomber fan, as a Winnipeg fan, I'm going Winnipeg. The Bombers have the chance to, again, I have personally been saying that it's kind of hard to say a team is not a dynasty in terms of having a certain level of dominance to even be in 5 Grey Cups in 5 seasons, and the Bombers have the opportunity though to get the question mark out of that and to put a period there instead, and to really solidify that. And it's one of those things where if the Bombers don't win and Nick Arbuckle was the starting quarterback, then you bet your ass the review that you are going to see of this game is going to be Rick just sitting there for an hour just going, ha!
First off, if you're gonna do it, you have to do the nail slap.
Oh my god. So,
but
I think that's all we got.
Before you end this,
Yeah,
I have
what do you
two
got?
things to announce.
Two things to announce.
So, because I don't know what Carter's schedule is tomorrow night, over on the Ticat Talk Network, I'm going to be live streaming the awards.
Yes.
The awards are tomorrow night at 10:30 on CFL Plus.
Which means at some point we will record a video on Canadian Football
Yes.
Central covering those, and that will be released. I'm hoping
And
to have that
Sunday.
released before Grey Cup.
And Sunday, I will
Rick will
be on this channel live streaming
Grey Cup.
the Grey Cup.
And I will
6
be
p.m.
on
Eastern,
there
people,
occasionally.
5 p.m. Pacific, or 5 p.m. Central.
Yeah, so make sure you guys check that out. I think that's all we got.
Who would have thought a Grey Cup game would be playing at 4 p.m. Pacific on a friggin' Sunday?
Fair enough. Well, you know what?
The game's over. The game's over, and it's still like earlier in the evening. It's like, what the hell am I gonna do now?
It's just the scheduling, my guy.
By 7 o'clock on Sunday, everyone in Winnipeg's gonna be fucking shit faced.
Oh yeah, no matter the result. So thank you guys so much for tuning in to this video and however long it's been. Make sure you guys leave a like, share it around,
and a half and 20 seconds.
Yes, and subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the notification bell; helps out the channel a ton. If you're listening to this on Spotify, make sure you guys give us 5 stars. We'd really appreciate the support. And without further ado, peace, love, and positivity to all the wonderful people at home. And we will see you guys next time.
Next time.